Hello, and welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I'm your host, Trey Shields, along with the Zen Master of Commercial Insurance, Micah Salas. Micah, how are you today?
Blessed. Wow, I don't think.
Oh. All right, so today's episode is going to be how to win deals even when you're 25% high. You have an interesting story for us from last week or a week or two ago, so I want to hear about that. But before we do, big shout out to Insurance Xdate. Can't thank them enough for sponsoring this podcast. Micah, it's the backbone of your whole prospecting. Use it as a CRM, use it as lead gen, it's kind of everything. What do you have to say about it?
It's fantastic, man. I couldn't do my job without them, and everyone should use it.
All right, the story. So you called me a couple of days, maybe yesterday, the day before, and we were like, what are we going to do this podcast about? And you're like, dude, I just won a deal, and I was like 25% higher than the competition. So can you lay that out for us and tell us what the hell happened and how you think you pulled that off?
Yeah. Pretty cool story. This was a prospect that got my book, liked it, did the due diligence. Throughout that process, we realized there was a lot of pain with the agent. However, there was 2 policies of their 5, whatever, that I couldn't AOR. So I didn't really even make a push to AOR because I knew I really couldn't. And plus I thought it would just be kind of a slam dunk win anyways. So I wasn't really stressed about anything. So anyways, I'm going through the process of getting quotes, having fun with that. And the numbers I'm getting are coming in way higher than I thought they would. You know, I thought it would be a slam dunk deal. I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy. We got the markets we wanted. So I did all the groundwork. I got all my markets. I confirmed all that. So I did the right stuff you got to do, right? But dude, our pricing just was not looking great. And actually for a minute there, I thought I wasn't even going to have an option. So I had to cancel my proposal meeting. That's how rough this was going. I had to push it back 4 business days. Finally put something out on the table. And when we presented, there was a lot of pain, but they're like, hey, our guy's going to come in Monday. You know, the classic, thank you, but we've been with X guy for X amount of years, so he's coming back, you know. And I was like, okay. And it was interesting. I didn't make any hard sale or anything, right? I did my proposal, went through everything. I made the proposal really big though. I put a little PowerPoint together, about 5 pages. One was like the coverage pricing, the coverage differences and the pricing summary. And then the other pages were all strategic plan where I'll take you in 3 years, how we can help reduce your risk, you know, what our service looks like, all that kind of stuff. But it was customized. It wasn't like generic fluffy stuff. So anyways, it went well. And their guy comes in Monday. I don't hear anything. Tuesday, the lady's like, hey, we got the numbers from them, and she sent them. And I was like, oh man, like we were like 30K plus high, 35K high. I'm like, dude, this sucks. I'm not going to get this deal. I was like, there's no way they're going to pay 30 grand more for me. Like, I know they're unhappy. I know that there's all these issues, but I just don't foresee that happening. So it's Wednesday. I get an email from them. Hey, can we talk? Owner wants to talk to you. Sure. They call me. I'm just waiting for the bad news. And they're like, yes, they ask a couple questions, and we're like, yeah, so here's the deal. Price is price, but service is service, and that's really important to me. And so we're gonna go with you. I was like, dude, my jaw dropped. He's like, we like everything you had to say. We like the way you educated us. I liked your book. He literally said that. I just think, we're just tired of bad service, and I think we're, want someone else we can grow with, etc. And yeah, so that was it. And it was a nice 25K revenue deal. But yeah, it was crazy.
That's wild.
But here's the most wild part of it. So a little asterisk on the end. So their agent comes in Monday, right? They want a decision by Wednesday last week. All of a sudden, a carrier that I had gone to that basically went silent, right? Never heard from them. And so I just kind of wrote them off, like, oh, they're probably not a fit anyways. Well, he reaches out last Monday and says, I think we might be able to compete on this thing. So anyways, I'm going through the process with him, and I emailed the client and I said, hey, just to FYI, here's a tentative, I have a tentative carrier who's interested, but there's some more information I need, blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying to get all this stuff, and I think they could be a little bit better price than what I presented you. But nothing was in stone. And so when he called me Wednesday, I thought they were calling me Wednesday to tell me like, hey, we can't wait any longer. Like, we just got to make the move. And so what they told me Wednesday when they, said, hey, we're going to go with you, it was like, hey, even if we have to go with the higher priced option that you presented, we're going to go with you. But let us know let's hopefully get it hashed out maybe by later today or Monday with this other carrier. Now the other carrier was still slightly higher than where they were at, but it was not 30,000, right?
Oh, so you ended up bringing it down.
Well, I did, yes, but they gave me the yes, not knowing that would happen. They said, we don't care if you have to go here. We're going.
I'm giving that to you. I'm giving it to you.
You gotta give it to me, man.
100%. 100%. All right. A couple of things here. You may have covered this. I may have just been zoned out. Did you? BOR was not on the table?
BOR was not in the table because two of the markets. One was the auto market, which made up probably a third of the premium, right? Or I don't know, somewhere around there, 25% of it, and then the work comp market. So yeah, so that kind of threw that out from the get-go.
They had markets you didn't have?
No. Long story. The carrier didn't really accept AORs. That's the best way to put it.
Oh, those guys.
Yep. So
God.
yeah, they're the worst. So the good part is this is a good lesson here. When I was going into so they read my book. They invited me out to meet with them. Before the first meeting, this was pretty key. And this is something I kind of forget to do sometimes. But I said, hey, can you send me all your policies? So getting that information before the first meeting was really big. So our first meeting basically was a finalist presentation, a due diligence presentation. That's what it actually was. Our very first time meeting, we ended up talking for like an hour. And that's where I educated them on so much stuff, dude. Like just their equipment policy was the way it was structured. Like they weren't taking advantage of lease rented equipment. They had just tons of issues. And so it really turned into like a big education session, but at the close and the culmination of that meeting, I couldn't go into like, hey, okay, so let's sign the AORs because I got the policies ahead of time. I knew for sure that wasn't even an option. So then it kind of was nice because then I ended that meeting and I was prepared and was like, hey, this is the next steps. Normally I would ask for this, but I can't do it in this situation. So yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, without going into too much detail, how much of it was a coverage issues?
There was very little coverage issues. They were in a non-standard market, and my big selling point was to get them out of that to a standard, which we achieved. But the coverage was pretty solid. So
didn't you just say their stuff was all messed up? I swear you just said that.
No, just like, yeah, I probably said it they weren't taking advantage of certain things, right? Like just some way it was programmed. It wasn't like a coverage problem with the carrier.
Okay,
it was like a programming kind of, but those were still, there was no, in my opinion, there was really nothing fireable from like just that. I thought their pricing was way out of whack. So that's part of the reason I was nervous too, because in that due diligence, this is also a good lesson. I did my benchmarking and I was like, hey, here's my other clients that do exactly what you do. Here's their premiums. Well, dude, I thought we're going to smoke their expiring premium by like 50 grand. And we were coming in right at it. And then their incumbent ends up lowering their price. And so then that's where we were like 35 grand high. So, but that's also kind of just a word of caution, when you're presenting this, always be like, hey, this is what I think you should be, but there's nothing guaranteed, right? Because now if I would have got the AOR, it would have been a lot more uncomfortable situation.
But I swear that there's a guy running around saying that you don't even need to look at policies, which is like, this is a perfect example. You go in there with that playbook and promise them X, Y, and Z, and you don't even know your ass from a hole in the wall. You're going to get absolutely torched. This is why that's such bad advice.
Yeah, no, I think it's really bad advice. It's just, and I'm not even saying it's bad advice because like, oh, you gotta take over that work, or you gotta know what you're taking over from an E&O standpoint. I just think it's just, you're talking about insurance, right? You're talking about how to get better premium and risk management, all the other stuff, but the insurance is a big component of that. So you at least want to have your head wrapped around what you're taking over, and if you can even take it over, right? So yeah.
And to be fair, the other guy who talks about this, I think his career was built on much smaller accounts versus what you're going after. So, yeah, when you go in like you promised them the moon and you actually come back in higher, well, if doesn't matter if they were at 8 grand and now you're at 10 grand, well, that doesn't really matter. But you're dealing with much bigger accounts here, so I just think that's an absolutely terrible piece of advice. And frankly, I know your numbers compared to his numbers, and it's not even close. So if you see somebody running around telling you that policy reviews are overrated, number one, what Micah talks about is not just policy reviews. That's one of like a dozen things that go into his due diligence review. And secondly, we're talking about true mid-market accounts versus like rinky-dink small biz. So just keep that in mind. All right, moving on. So BR wasn't on the table, which is again another testament to how much money you leave on the table if you only chase BORs. Secondly, didn't have a ton of coverage stuff, but it was program stuff. It seemed like how it was structured. Thirdly, let's talk about like your value add, where you basically gave them here's what I would do moving forward without giving away too much of the details. What does that look like?
Yeah. So the couple things is one of the carriers did a risk control survey, right? And then we were hearing feedback from various carriers, right? 5 or 6 that we had gone to, and common themes were coming up. So when I came back to the final proposal, that's what I was basing a lot of my selling points on. I was like, hey, these 2 issues are costing you interest from underwriters, right? So we got to fix those 2 issues beyond just underwriter interest, just your own company, right? You're exposing yourself to these different risks because you're not taking care of these issues. And so that really helped formulate. I kind of formulated again my action plan around what the underwriters were telling me, because that was the direct feedback from the markets. And so that was one. And then I talked about a vision for like a 3-year, like here's where we want to get you in 3 years. Here's the goal, and then here's year 1, year 2, year 3. And I've talked about this in other videos, kind of like the 3-year strategic plan, and I think a lot of brokers, we don't talk about on the P&C side, we don't talk long term because it kind of seems fluffy, and maybe some of it is hypothetical, but you look at it every year, right? So, but I think it does send a message to the client like, hey, this guy's thinking strategically about my account, and it really cements that relationship in there.
So like taking them from E&S to standard or from standard to captive.
I was like, hey, what I'd like to do is get you out of the, first goal, get you out of the E&S market. We're achieving that here, year 1. By year 2, implement this and this. By year 3, having you basically running a super solid operation, and then just evaluating things as they come up. And that was kind of it.
Gotcha. Side note, as I'm sitting here, we're talking, I'm like, man, the screen is like, what's going on with the tint of the screen? It's like your camera's like green today. And then I was like, oh, it's because I have these stupid blue.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
I'm an idiot. All right. So now let's to recap, what do you think are the key contributors to why you won this, even with being 25% high initially?
I think it really boils down to one, what the guy told me, right? He's like, it's not about this, but service is service. I think service, and that entails a couple things, but because here's the deal, when we're selling service, it's all just lip service at that point as an agent, right? Because there's no service involved. He doesn't know if we're going to be good, have good response times yet. He hasn't even worked with me. So again, I think this is key, and it's something that we don't think about enough, but you have to demonstrate good service throughout the selling process, right? So the close, or the first meeting to when you actually present, that's when you're demonstrating some of your service. Are you responding quickly? Are you asking good questions? Are you just randomly firing every underwriter's response? Are you kind of consolidating things, making their life easier? That whole side of it, I think, keeping them in the loop, communicating, I think that's how you demonstrate the service beforehand, and you're kind of building that confidence all the way up until the close. So that's a key thing. And then the book was huge because the guy actually mentioned it, the book. I really liked your book. The reason it was so big is because it was about education. So I've mentioned this when we first started this podcast, education, right? At the very first meeting, I was educating him. That's why I like due diligence, because it gives you a chance to educate the buyer and like bring different ideas to the table they'd never heard before, right? And so my book opened the door by he's like, oh, I really like this book. Let's bring the guy in. Then I review the policies. Then I meet with him after doing the due diligence, and I educate him again for an hour, talking about all this different stuff. And so, there's some sales.
Wasn't this the lady who originally shut you down, and then so you mailed it to?
Yes.
We put a post up about that.
Well, and
But
that
then you
lady
mailed
turned
it
into
to the owner.
that lady turned to be my biggest advocate, my like inside person, because she was so frustrated with service.
Okay, let's tackle that. How did you? She shut you. If you didn't hear this in a previous podcast, he talked about. We were talking about effective follow-up, and so he talked about how he got shut down by the office manager and that they were happy and yada yada yada. So he mailed a copy of his book to the actual business owner. The business owner then goes back to the office manager, tells her to read it too, and then enlists her into being Micah's liaison. So anyways, so how did you turn her from naysayer to believer? Besides your devilishly good looks.
Yeah, no, obviously being very courteous and all that and doing that, but I think a lot of these people put up fronts so that she has a job to do, and so she's like, yeah, I'm not really happy with insurance, but I have no decision-making power here. Anyways, I know he's happy, go away, right? Been with our guy for 8 years, we're fine. She was doing her job, and so I think she was just putting up a front, a false mask, and that's what you got to realize is that whatever someone kind of portrays himself to be as isn't necessarily who they really are, how they feel. Because then I got into the first meeting and it's like, well, no, this is wrong, this is annoying, this is frustrating, and all that good stuff. And one of the things you asked, hey, what were your keys to this? I said service, education, but the other thing is there has to be some pain. So I tell you this story about my win, but right after I got off the call with these guys getting the yes, I got a no 2 minutes later on a different deal. A bigger deal that was like 30 in revenue.
Yeah, I was going to get you to go into that. Tell me what happened, even though you were the low man on that one, right?
Yep, I was low man by $2,000. Should have been about 10, but there was a admin hiccup on our end, so we were only $2,000 less.
That stings.
Yeah, the deal there, I could have AOR'd it. There with the market we had. He wasn't really willing to go that route. I did my due diligence. He liked it. He's like, yeah, sure. And I thought, okay, I get the markets I wanted, which I did. I thought they were overpaying, which they were a little bit. And at the end, we didn't get it. And so it's kind of funny that that could be a case for like, hey, you wasted your time. See, quoting doesn't work. I was like, all right. I never said I'm 100%, but probably close to 75, 80%. And so I'm willing to accept some of those losses like that. That guy was like, dude, this is, and maybe he's trying to be nice, but he called me and he said, hey man, I honestly didn't think this would be this tough of a decision for me to make. You made it a lot more difficult. Been with our guy 15 years though, and just to leave him for $2,000, blah, blah, blah.
Do you think that you hurt your chances in the future, or that you have?
Oh no, no.
Open your foot's in the door.
My foot's in the door there every year. I'll call the guy, check up, what's up, and I'm not going to quote again. That'd be stupid. But
yeah,
I'll be there. One of the things that's interesting, I was thinking about that deal, why I didn't get it. There was coverage pay. Their umbrella was not over their auto, and it was a big deal to the owner. He was frustrated by it, and that was the biggest gap. Really, everything else was pretty fine.
Do you think he did it to save cost and not disclose it?
I asked him that. I said, hey man, are you doing this to save? He's like, no, we want the umbrella. I've worked hard to build my business. We're doing 15 million a year revenue for, I have a lot to lose. So he was like, no, this needs to be over that.
And the agent.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
An idiot. He knows it's not over the auto.
Yeah, who knows, man. But the interesting thing when I was reflecting back on this deal was, so they actually had coverage pain, but they had no service pain, right? Got their certs fast, the agent they admitted to me he had kind of gotten complacent. But in terms of service and just getting the job done, that was being done. So fast forward to when he's telling me no, he's like, hey man, you were $2,000 less, but I really needed you to be probably 10 to 15. I honestly would have went with you. I was like, okay, whatever. Again, I don't know if that's genuine or not, because they're just trying to make you feel good in that scenario. But it was interesting during our proposal. I presented my 3-year strategic plan, and it pointed out some risk management things. And as we're going through their little 5-page proposal, he flips back, says, hey, let's talk about this again. And he's like, how likely are you going to actually do this stuff, or are you just talking about that? Because I never get this from my agent. And I said, no, I would actually do this. That's why I put it in here. And so I know he was actually being genuine when he said, like, you actually gave me a lot to think about, and it was a tough decision. And he waited till the very last day, right before Thanksgiving, to make the call, and his policy expired basically on Friday, so he had to make the call. So I learned a lot, right? It was like, hey, if there's no service pain, that's when you push for the AOR, I think, unless you see they're way out of line on price and you can smoke them. I didn't think they were way out of line on price. I thought he told me you got to be about 15K less right from the first meeting, and I thought we could get there. Like I said, we had a little hiccup on the back end that I think cost us the deal, maybe. But even that aside, I just think there wasn't enough pain. And then,
did he get, or did you get confirmation that he had a revised umbrella excess quote that was sitting over his auto?
Yeah. I asked him, I said, hey, you made sure the guy, mirrored our umbrella, right? Yeah, I did that. And you're about 2K less, with everything all said and done. And so, yeah, it was, man. And also one of the issues here was timing, right? I was presenting on the, 2-3 days prior to decision-making time. And so that's never a good position to be in. You never want people to feel rushed. But I should have pushed harder for the AOR on that one, and I didn't. I don't think he would have signed it. I'm like 99% sure he wouldn't have signed the AOR, because again, they were happy overall. Yeah, he was complacent, but they were fairly happy. And he's kind of a price buyer, but he's also not going to leave you for a few $1,000. So he's not a bad person altogether. That's just how he operates, right? And so
how much in revenue was it?
Would have been about 31K, something like that. So it was a nice deal.
So y'all's fiscal year ends 11/1. How do you, recapping your year, how do you feel about your year?
It was okay. It was solid. New revenue, PNC 205, 210, and then throwing bonds, and it was probably up to, like, I split it with a bond guy, 235, 240. I don't know. Solid year. I will tell you this: the bigger your book gets, the harder it is to prioritize prospecting. Even this deal I just closed, man, there was one of my weaknesses I realized is when I have a deal in the works and it's like, I'll sit there almost frozen, and I'll kind of sit there checking my emails, but I can't get into prospecting mode when I'm thinking about a deal that's kind of lingering. And so I don't know how I get past that. It's definitely a weakness of mine. I don't know if any of you guys listening feel that same way, but it's like this frozen, you go into, like, I don't know, it's like freeze. It's like a freeze mode. It's like, oh, I got to be solely focused on getting this deal. So even though there's nothing you can do for the 3 hours you're waiting for an underwriter to get back to you, there's nothing you can do. So, but why fill that time with checking emails over and over again and just doing some BS service work when you could make calls? And I didn't do that, right? So it is what it is. At least I'm aware of it, but yeah. So, but it was a nice win for me. I have that and another one or two, just because you start to look at your pipeline, like, man, if this falls through, I'm like, now I got to sit here and be having a slow start to the year, right? So.
Yeah, but it didn't fall through, so now you're off to back off to a good start.
Yep. Yeah, man. But now I got to focus on March and get the pipeline for February, some late February, March stuff rolling here for 3 weeks, because we're December 2nd. And I think you got about 2 weeks to start to build a pipeline for, like, February, March, because by the 20th of this month, you're dead for 10 days,
Shit, before then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know you're busy. I'll let you run. I got to go pick up the kiddos. I know you got shit to do. So let's kill it here. Guys, if you want to basically learn the whole system that Micah uses, literally what he talked about, check out the producer playbook, link in the show notes. I'm flying out to Austin to see him. We are redoing it, revamping it, putting lipstick on that pig, and it's going to be considerably more expensive in the coming months once we finally get that done. So hop in and grab it now for damn near nothing. And link to subscribe to the Max Revenue Letter, our weekly newsletter, and also link to your free demo of Insurance Xdate. It's all in the show notes. We
Free.
appreciate you listening. And Producer Games is coming, hoping to launch January 1st. Our new app that may fall flat on its face, who knows, but it's a prospecting tracker for producers to help you keep you accountable, show you your streaks, give you little badges, rewards, like as you're doing your thing. And also there's a national leaderboard. So you can see where you stack up against all basically of your peers across the country. Just keep you on track, keep you moving forward. But with that, we bid you adieu. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.
Adios.
Adios.